My husband's mistress presented a will at his funeral giving her our $4 million estate, house, business, everything. She even had my lawyer convinced. I said nothing. Then I pulled out the real will from his secret safety deposit box and her attorney whispered, "That's a forgery charge, federal prison." Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my story. If you're comfortable, let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. Now let me tell you my story. The moment my husband Vincent was lowered into the ground, I knew my battle was just beginning. Not the battle of grief, though that was real and crushing. The battle I'd been preparing for since the day Vincent came home 2 weeks before his death, and told me his mistress was planning to steal everything we'd built together. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with the funeral. It was a small service, about 40 people at Mount Olive Baptist Church in Atlanta. Vincent had been well liked in the construction business he'd built over 30 years, but he wasn't the type to have hundreds of friends. I sat in the front pew wearing my black dress and pearls, my sister Dorothy next to me, holding my hand. Vincent Morrison, dead at 68 from a massive heart attack. We'd been married for 42 years. I was 66 now and the man I'd built a life with was gone. The pastor finished the eulogy. It was lovely talking about Vincent's generosity, his business acumen, his dedication to his family. Family. That's what I thought we were. But Vincent had secrets. And in the last 2 weeks of his life, he'd confessed them all. The funeral was ending. People were preparing to go to the cemetery for the burial. That's when she stood up. From the back of the church, a woman I'd seen before but never spoken to rose from her seat. Amber Reeves, 34 years old. Vincent's former executive assistant. Former because Vincent had finally fired her 3 days before his heart attack, though he died before the termination could be processed. Amber was dressed inappropriately for a funeral. Tight black dress, heels too high, makeup too heavy. She looked like she was going to a nightclub, not saying goodbye to a dead man. "Excuse me," Amber's voice rang out across the church. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's something everyone needs to know." The church went silent. Every head turned. I didn't move. Just watched her. "My name is Amber Reeves. I worked for Vincent for the past 4 years. And I was more than just his assistant. Vincent and I were in love." Gasps echoed through the church. Dorothy squeezed my hand tighter. I still said nothing. "Vincent was going to leave Claudia," Amber continued, walking down the aisle like this was her wedding instead of my husband's funeral. "He was going to divorce her and marry me. We had plans, a future together. And before he died, she pulled a document from her designer handbag. He made sure I was taken care of. This is Vincent's last will and testament, dated 6 months ago, properly signed, witnessed and notarized." She held up the papers like a trophy. "Vincent left me everything. The house, the business, all the assets. I have copies for anyone who wants to see them." She walked to where my lawyer Mitchell Rhodes was sitting, and handed him a copy. Mitchell had been our family attorney for 20 years. He handled our routine legal matters, property transfers, business contracts, simple estate planning. He looked at the document, his face going pale. "Claudia," he whispered to me, This looks legitimate. It has Vincent's signature, witness signatures, notary seal, everything." Amber was now standing at the front of the church, addressing everyone like she was the grieving widow instead of me. "I know this is difficult for Claudia to hear," she said with fake sympathy that made my skin crawl. "But Vincent made his choice. He loved me. He wanted me to have everything. This will prove it." All eyes turned to me, waiting for my reaction, waiting for me to scream, cry, attack her, something. I stood up slowly, with the dignity I'd maintained for 66 years. Looked directly at Amber, and said quietly, "We will sort this out through the proper legal channels. This is not the time or place for this discussion. Today we bury my husband. Everything else can wait." Then I turned and walked out of the church toward my car, ready to go to the cemetery. Behind me I heard the murmurs, the shocked whispers. But I didn't care, because I knew something Amber didn't know, something that was going to destroy her completely. But first, I had to bury my husband. At the cemetery, Amber had the audacity to stand near the grave, crying dramatically. Several people who didn't know better offered her condolences. I stood on the other side with Dorothy and a few close friends who knew the truth about what kind of woman Amber was. After Vincent's casket was lowered into the ground and the final prayers were said, Amber approached me. She had tears running down her face, real or fake. I couldn't tell and didn't care. Claudia, I know this is hard for you, she said in a voice dripping with false compassion. But Vincent and I were in love. Real love. He was going to leave you. This will represent his true wishes. I looked at her, this woman who was young enough to be my daughter, this woman who'd had an affair with my husband, this woman who was now trying to steal everything I had. We'll let the courts decide what Vincent's true wishes were, I said calmly. The courts will uphold the will, Amber said, her fake sympathy slipping into arrogance. It's legitimate, legal. You should probably start looking for an apartment, Claudia. That house is mine now. She actually smiled when she said it. Dorothy grabbed my arm, holding me back, though I had no intention of doing anything. You're awfully confident, I said quietly. I have every reason to be. Vincent loved me. The will proves it, and in a few weeks after probate, everything will be transferred to me. The house you've lived in for 40 years, mine. The business Vincent built, mine. Every penny, mine. We'll see, I said. Then I turned and walked to my car. Dorothy followed me, furious. Claudia, how can you be so calm? That woman is trying to steal everything. I know what she's trying to do, I said quietly. Get in the car, Dorothy, we need to talk. At my house, the house Amber thought she was going to take from me, Dorothy, Mitchell and I sat in the living room. Mitchell had brought the copy of the will Amber had distributed. Claudia, I've reviewed this carefully, Mitchell said, his voice heavy. This will appears to be legitimate. It's dated 6 months ago, which would make it more recent than the will I helped Vincent draft 3 years ago. The one leaving everything to me, I said. Yes, if this new will is authentic and on first inspection it appears to be, it supersedes the previous will. Amber would inherit everything. Dorothy was pacing. Can we prove it's fake? Can we fight this? I can have it analyzed by forensic document examiners, Mitchell said. But that takes time and money. And Claudia, I have to be honest, if Vincent really did sign this will, if he really did leave everything to Amber, the law would uphold it. Even though he was married to Claudia for 42 years? Dorothy demanded. Even then, a person has the right to leave their estate to whomever they choose. If Vincent chose Amber, he didn't, I said quietly. Both of them looked at me. What do you mean? Mitchell asked. I stood up and walked to my purse, pulled out a small key. Vincent and I knew this was coming, I said. 2 weeks before he died, he told me everything, about the affair, about Amber, and about her plan to forge a will and steal our estate. Mitchell's eyes widened. Forge a will? Vincent found a draft on Amber's computer. She was planning to create a fake will, leaving everything to her. So Vincent and I set a trap. What kind of trap? We created a new will. A real one. Properly executed, authenticated, with security features that can't be forged. It's dated 13 days before Vincent's death, which makes it more recent than whatever forgery Amber is presenting. Dorothy gasped. You have a newer will? I do, and it's in a safety deposit box at First National Bank. A box that Amber doesn't know exists. A will that leaves everything to me, as Vincent always intended. Mitchell was staring at me. Claudia, why didn't you tell me this immediately? Why let Amber present her will at the funeral? Why go through all of this? I looked at him steadily. Because I wanted to see exactly how far she would go, how much she would lie, how many crimes she would commit. Crimes? Presenting a forged will is fraud, Mitchell. It's a felony, and I don't just want to beat Amber in probate court, I want her in prison. Mitchell sat back, stunned. Dorothy was smiling now, understanding dawning on her face. You set her up, Dorothy said. You let her think she was going to win. I let her reveal herself completely, I corrected, and now I'm going to destroy her with evidence she doesn't even know exists. Let me back up and tell you what happened 2 weeks before Vincent died. It was a Tuesday evening. Vincent came home from work looking shaken, more upset than I'd seen him in years. Claudia, we need to talk. We sat in the same living room and Vincent told me everything. The affair had started 2 years ago. Amber had been working as his executive assistant for 2 years before that. Young, beautiful, ambitious, she'd pursued him aggressively. Vincent, to his eternal shame, had given in. I know there's no excuse, Vincent said, tears in his eyes. I was weak, stupid, flattered that a young woman wanted me. I'm so sorry, Claudia. I'd suspected for months, the late nights, the distance between us, the way he looked at his phone. But hearing it confirmed still hurt. Why are you telling me now? I asked. Because she's become dangerous. 6 months ago I tried to end it, told her it was over, that I was staying with you. She didn't take it well. What did she do? She threatened to sue the company for sexual harassment. Said she'd document everything. Texts, emails, hotel receipts. Said she'd destroy the business unless I left you and married her. That's extortion. I know, but it gets worse. Last week I found something on her computer at the office. A draft document. A will. My will. Leaving everything to her. My blood went cold. She's planning to forge your signature. Yes. And Claudia, I think she's planning to do something worse.
Like what?
I think she wants me dead. If I die and she has a forged will leaving her everything, she gets the house, the business, all our assets. She's been researching my heart condition, asking questions about my medications. I think she's planning something. Vincent had a heart condition, atrial fibrillation. He took medication for it, managed it carefully. But he was at higher risk for heart attack than most men his age. We need to go to the police. I said. With what evidence? A draft document I found when I shouldn't have been on her computer. Vague suspicions? They won't do anything until she actually commits a crime. Then what do we do? Vincent looked at me with determination I hadn't seen in years. We set a trap. We prepare for exactly what she's planning. And when she tries it, we make sure she goes to prison. That's when we came up with the plan. First we needed a new will. One that was absolutely irrefutably authentic and more recent than whatever Amber would forge. But we couldn't use Mitchell. He was our regular attorney. Yes, but Amber knew about him. She might have somehow compromised him or found a way to challenge anything he prepared. So we went to a different attorney. Elizabeth Chen, an estate planning specialist who worked across town and had a reputation for handling high-stakes, contested estates. We need a will that cannot be forged, cannot be challenged, and is provably authentic, I told Elizabeth. Elizabeth understood immediately. She'd handled cases like this before: predatory family members, gold-digging companions, people trying to steal inheritances. I have exactly what you need, she said. The next day, exactly 13 days before Vincent died, we went back to Elizabeth's office. She had special paper, DNA-embedded security paper that had microscopic markers that couldn't be replicated. She set up a video camera with a timestamp to record the entire will signing. Vincent sat at her conference table, completely lucid and competent, and created his new will. It was simple and clear. I, Vincent Morrison, being of sound mind and body, hereby revoke all previous wills and codicils. I leave my entire estate to my wife, Claudia Morrison. My former employee Amber Reeves is specifically excluded from any inheritance and shall receive nothing from my estate. This exclusion is intentional, as Ms. Reeves has attempted to extort me and has threatened to create fraudulent documents to steal my estate. He signed it. Elizabeth and a notary public witnessed it, both appearing clearly on the video. The entire signing was recorded with a timestamp showing the date and time. Elizabeth gave me the original will, a copy of the video on an encrypted USB drive, and documentation of the DNA-embedded paper's authentication markers. Keep the original in a safe place, Elizabeth said. Not at your regular bank, somewhere Amber won't know about. So I opened a new safety deposit box at First National Bank, a bank where Vincent and I had no other accounts. The box was in my name only. Amber couldn't access it, couldn't even know it existed. I put the original will in the box, along with the USB drive and authentication documents. What now? Vincent asked. Now we wait, I said. If Amber tries what you think she's going to try, we'll be ready. And if she actually tries to hurt me, to kill me, then we go to the police with everything we have. But Vincent, we need evidence. Real evidence, not just suspicions. 6 days later, Vincent had a massive heart attack at his office. Amber was there when it happened. She called 911, rode in the ambulance with him. By the time I got to the hospital, Vincent was already gone. The doctors said it was a massive coronary event. His heart condition had finally caught up with him. Was it natural, or had Amber done something to trigger it? I didn't know. Still don't know. But what I did know was that Amber would now make her move. And I was ready. During the week between Vincent's death and the funeral, I waited. I didn't tell anyone about the real will in the safety deposit box. Not Dorothy, not Mitchell, not even my closest friends. I wanted to see exactly what Amber would do. Would she quietly fade away? Or would she go for everything? On the day of the funeral I got my answer. She went for everything, publicly, dramatically, cruelly, presenting her forged will at Vincent's funeral, claiming she was his true love, trying to humiliate me in front of everyone who knew us. That's when I knew Amber wasn't just greedy, she was evil, and I was going to make sure she paid for every bit of it. The day after the funeral, Mitchell called me. Claudia, I've examined Amber's will in detail. I hate to say this, but it looks legitimate. The signature appears to be Vincent's. The witnesses are real people. I verified their identities. The notary stamp is genuine. What are you saying? I'm saying that if this will is authentic, it supersedes the one I have on file. Amber would inherit everything. And if it's not authentic, if it's forged, then we'd need to prove that. Forensic document analysis. Handwriting experts. That takes time and costs money, easily $50,000 or more. And even then, if the forger was skilled enough, we might not be able to prove it conclusively. What do you recommend? Mitchell hesitated. Honestly, you might want to consider settling with Amber. Offer her a portion of the estate in exchange for her dropping her claim. It would be faster and cheaper than a protracted court battle you might lose. Settle with the woman who's trying to steal my husband's estate. I know it's not fair, but Claudia, if her will is valid, it's not. How do you know? Because I have Vincent's real will. The one he signed 13 days before his death. More recent than whatever Amber forged. Authenticated with security features she couldn't possibly replicate. Silence on the other end of the phone. You have a newer will? I do.
Where is it?
Safety deposit box at First National Bank, along with video proof of Vincent signing it. Claudia, why didn't you tell me this immediately? Because I wanted to see what Amber would do. How far she'd go. And now I know she forged a will, presented it publicly, and is actively trying to steal a $4.35 million estate. That's not just civil fraud, Mitchell. That's criminal fraud. Felony level. What do you want to do? I want you to contact Elizabeth Chen. She's the attorney who prepared the real will. She has all the documentation. We're going to fight this in probate court. And while we're doing that, we're going to build a criminal case against Amber that sends her to federal prison. Federal prison? Forging a will is fraud. Using the mail or electronic communications to perpetrate that fraud is wire fraud. A federal crime. My brother Raymond used to work for the FBI. He has contacts. We're going to make sure Amber faces both civil and criminal consequences. Mitchell was quiet for a moment. Then, you've been planning this. Vincent and I planned this together. He warned me what Amber was going to do. We prepared, and now I'm executing the plan exactly as we discussed. I've never seen this side of you, Claudia. Most people haven't. I spent 38 years as an estate planning attorney before I retired. Mitchell, I know exactly how inheritance fraud works. And I know exactly how to stop it. The next 2 weeks were strategic. I didn't reveal the real will yet. Instead, I let Amber think she was winning. And Amber, arrogant and overconfident, made mistake after mistake. She moved into my house, actually showed up with suitcases and told me I needed to leave. The will says I inherit the house, she said, standing in my foyer like she owned it. So I'm moving in. You need to find somewhere else to live. I could have called the police. Could have had her removed. But instead I said, I'll need some time to find a place and pack my things. You have 2 weeks, she said, like she was doing me a favor. So I packed a bag and went to stay with Dorothy, leaving Amber in my house. Dorothy was furious. How can you let her do this? Because every day she spends in that house thinking she owns it. Every dollar she spends thinking it's her money. Every move she makes, it's all evidence of fraud. I'm documenting everything. And I'd installed security cameras in my house months ago. Vincent had insisted on it for security. Amber didn't know they existed because they were hidden. Every day she spent in my house was recorded. Every phone call she made. Every conversation with her friends about her inheritance. She also took over Vincent's business. Morrison Construction had been Vincent's pride and joy, worth about $2.8 million based on recent valuation. Amber walked into the office, announced she was the new owner, and started making changes. She fired 3 employees she didn't like, including the senior project manager who'd been with Vincent for 20 years. She started spending company money on herself. New car, designer clothes, expensive dinners. She hired a probate attorney named David Walsh. He had a reputation for aggressive estate litigation and for not asking too many questions about his client's ethics. Walsh filed a motion in probate court to execute Amber's will immediately before the normal waiting period. Mitchell opposed it, arguing we needed time to verify the will's authenticity. The judge, Patricia Morrison, no relation, allowed 30 days for forensic analysis. Meanwhile, I was working with Elizabeth Chen and my brother Raymond. Raymond had retired from the FBI 5 years ago, but he'd spent 30 years in their forensic science division. He knew everyone in law enforcement and forensic investigation. "Let me see this forged will," Raymond said when I showed him what Amber had presented. He examined it with the eye of someone who'd spent decades analyzing fraudulent documents. "This is good work," he admitted. "Professional level forgery, but it's still a forgery. Can you prove it? Give me 2 weeks." Raymond sent the document to Dr. Marcus Reed, one of the country's leading forensic document examiners. Someone Raymond had worked with dozens of times at the FBI. Dr. Reed's analysis came back devastating. The signature is not authentic. It's traced from another document. You can see microscopic hesitation marks where the forger stopped and started, following an outline. The pressure pattern is wrong. Natural handwriting has variable pressure. This has uniform pressure throughout, consistent with tracing. The ink dates to the wrong period. Chemical analysis shows this ink is from a pen manufactured only 4 months ago. Vincent died 6 months after this will was supposedly signed. The timeline doesn't match. The paper is standard office stock, not the kind of paper a professional will typically uses. No security features, no watermarks, just regular printer paper. Raymond also investigated the witnesses who'd signed Amber's forged will. There were 2 witnesses listed, Robert Martinez and Jennifer Kim. Both were real people, both existed. But when Raymond's investigator interviewed them, the truth came out. Robert Martinez, a woman named Amber, paid me $5,000 to sign a document as a witness. She said it was a standard affidavit for a legal matter. I didn't know it was a will. I definitely didn't see anyone named Vincent sign anything. Jennifer Kim. Same thing. Amber Reeves contacted me through a friend. Offered me $5,000 cash to sign a document as a witness. I needed the money, so I did it. I didn't realize it was fraudulent. I'm willing to testify to that. Both witnesses were willing to cooperate with authorities in exchange for immunity from prosecution. The notary's stamp on the will was real. It belonged to a legitimate notary named Susan Chen. But when investigators contacted Susan, she had no record of notarizing Vincent's will. "I keep detailed logs of every document I notarize, as required by law," Susan said. "I have no record of a will for Vincent Morrison dated 6 months ago. Someone either stole my stamp or created a forgery of it." Every piece of evidence pointed to one conclusion: Amber's will was a sophisticated, well-planned forgery. But we had more than just proof of forgery. We also had proof of embezzlement. Raymond's forensic accountant reviewed Morrison Construction's books. Amber had been stealing from the company for months, long before Vincent died. Forged checks with Vincent's signature, $180,000 embezzled over 18 months. Company credit cards used for personal expenses, $65,000 in designer clothes, jewelry, trips. Fake invoices for services never rendered, $90,000 paid to shell companies Amber controlled. Total embezzlement, $335,000. "This isn't just inheritance fraud," Raymond said. "This is wire fraud, embezzlement, forgery, conspiracy, federal charges. She's looking at 20 to 30 years in prison." "Good," I said. Finally, the 30-day waiting period ended. Time for the probate hearing, where Amber thought she was going to be declared the legitimate heir to Vincent's estate. The courtroom was packed. Word had spread about the mistress trying to steal everything from the widow case. People love a scandal. Amber arrived in a new Mercedes, bought with embezzled company money, though she didn't know we knew that yet. She was dressed in an expensive designer suit, dripping with jewelry, looking like she'd already won. Her attorney, David Walsh, stood before Judge Patricia Morrison. "Your Honor, we're here to prove the validity of Vincent Morrison's last will and testament, dated 6 months before his death. This will clearly states Mr. Morrison's intention to leave his entire estate to my client, Amber Reeves." Judge Morrison looked at the will, and Mrs. Morrison's attorney is disputing this will's authenticity. Mitchell stood. "Yes, Your Honor, we believe this will is a forgery." "Do you have evidence to support that claim?" "We do. We've had the document analyzed by a forensic expert, Dr. Marcus Reed. one of the country's leading forensic document examiners. Walsh jumped in. Your Honor, we also had the document analyzed by our own expert who concluded it's authentic. Dueling experts, Judge Morrison said dryly. How original. Well, let's see what you both have. Walsh presented his expert, a man named Thomas Gray, who had questionable credentials and a reputation for testifying for whoever paid him. Gray's testimony was vague and unconvincing. The signature appears consistent with other samples of Mr. Morrison's handwriting. Then Mitchell called Dr. Marcus Reed. Dr. Reed presented a comprehensive analysis with photographs, chemical analysis, pressure point mapping. This signature is traced, not naturally written. The ink dates to the wrong time period. The witnesses have admitted they were paid to sign without actually witnessing anything. This is an elaborate forgery, but it is absolutely a forgery. I watched Amber's face go pale. Walsh was whispering furiously to her. Judge Morrison looked troubled. This is serious. If this will is forged, we're talking about criminal fraud. Your Honor, Walsh said, sweating now, we would request additional time to review this analysis. That's when I stood up. Your Honor, if I may? Judge Morrison looked at me. Mrs. Morrison? I walked to the front of the courtroom, reached into my briefcase, pulled out a document and a USB drive. Your Honor, before you rule on the authenticity of Miss Reeves' will, I have something the court needs to see. I handed the document to the judge. This is my husband Vincent's actual last will and testament, dated 13 days before his death, making it more recent than the will Miss Reeves presented. The courtroom erupted. Amber shot to her feet. That's not possible. There is no other will. Judge Morrison held up her hand for silence. Everyone sit down. She examined the will I'd given her, read it carefully. This appears to be properly executed, signed by Mr. Morrison, witnessed by attorney Elizabeth Chen, and a notary public, dated, yes, 13 days before Mr. Morrison's death. Your Honor, Walsh was on his feet. We've never seen this document. This is highly irregular. Where has this will been? In a safety deposit box at First National Bank, I said calmly, where my husband and I put it specifically to protect it from forgery or tampering. Why are we only seeing this now? Judge Morrison asked. I looked directly at her. Because my husband told me 2 weeks before his death that Miss Reeves was planning to forge a will. He'd found a draft of a fake will on her computer at work. So we created this will as protection and waited to see what she would do. And she did exactly what my husband predicted. She presented a forged will, made a public spectacle at his funeral, moved into my house, started spending company money, committed fraud repeatedly. I wanted to see how far she would go, and now I know, all the way to felony fraud. I handed the USB drive to Judge Morrison. This is a video recording of my husband signing this will, with a timestamp. In the presence of attorney Elizabeth Chen. It's authenticated with DNA-embedded security paper that can't be forged. The judge took the USB drive. I'd like to view this. The courtroom's video system was set up. Everyone watched the screen. There was Vincent, alive and well, sitting in Elizabeth Chen's office 13 days before his death. Elizabeth's voice, Mr. Morrison, you're here voluntarily to execute your last will and testament. Vincent, yes. I want to make absolutely clear that I leave everything to my wife, Claudia. My former employee Amber Reeves is specifically excluded and receives nothing. Why are you excluding her? Because she's attempted to extort me. She's threatened to forge documents to steal my estate after I die. I want it on record that Amber Reeves gets nothing. Not 1 penny. He signed the will. The notary certified it. The timestamp clearly showed the date. The courtroom was silent. Amber looked like she was going to be sick. Walsh was frantically whispering to her, probably telling her to shut up and get a criminal defense attorney. Judge Morrison turned off the video. Mrs. Morrison, you stated you have evidence that the will Miss Reeves presented is a forgery. Yes, Your Honor, Dr. Reed's forensic analysis proves the signature is traced. The witnesses have admitted they were paid $5,000 each to sign without actually witnessing anything. The ink dates to the wrong time period. It's a sophisticated forgery, but it's absolutely fake. The judge looked at Amber. Miss Reeves, do you wish to respond to these allegations? Amber started to speak, but Walsh grabbed her arm. Your Honor, we need time to review this new evidence. Mr. Walsh, your client presented what appears to be a forged will to this court. That's not a civil matter. That's a crime. Judge Morrison made her ruling. I'm admitting Mrs. Morrison's will, The one dated 13 days before Mr. Morrison's death to probate as the valid last will and testament. The will presented by Ms. Reeves is rejected as fraudulent. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution. Ms. Reeves, forgery and fraud are felonies. You should retain a criminal defense attorney immediately. The courtroom doors opened. FBI Special Agent Carmen Torres walked in with 2 other agents. Raymond had coordinated this perfectly. Amber Reeves, Agent Torres said, "Badge out, you're under arrest for wire fraud, forgery of legal documents, conspiracy to commit fraud, and perjury." 2 agents moved toward Amber. She tried to run, actually tried to bolt for a side door. The agents caught her in 3 steps, handcuffed her. "This is wrong," Amber was screaming. "That will is real. Vincent promised me everything. He loved me." "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent," Agent Torres said. "I suggest you use it." They led her out of the courtroom in handcuffs, still screaming about how unfair it all was. David Walsh was sweating profusely. "Your Honor, I had no knowledge that the will was forged. My client deceived me." I turned to him. "Mr. Walsh, you might want to retain your own attorney. Knowingly presenting fraudulent documents to a court is a crime. And I have a feeling the Bar Association is going to be very interested in your due diligence practices." Walsh went white and quickly left the courtroom. Judge Morrison looked at me. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm sorry for everything you've been through. Your husband's estate is yours. All assets that Miss Reeves accessed or spent will be recovered as restitution." "Thank you, Your Honor." I walked out of the courtroom to where Dorothy and Raymond were waiting. Dorothy hugged me. "You did it. You actually did it." "Vincent did it," I said. "He warned me. He prepared. He protected me even though he knew he might not be here to see it through. He'd be proud of you," Raymond said. "I hope so." The criminal investigation into Amber took 3 months. The FBI tore apart her entire life. What they found was worse than we'd even suspected. Amber had been running a long-term con on Vincent from the moment she started working for him 4 years ago. She targeted him specifically, researched him, knew he was wealthy, knew he had heart problems, knew he was vulnerable to flattery from a younger woman. The affair had been calculated from day one. Digital forensics found searches on her computer dating back 3 years. How to seduce older men, inheritance laws, forging signatures, making death look natural. She'd been planning this for years. The embezzlement was extensive, $335,000 stolen from Morrison Construction over 18 months. The forged will had cost her $25,000. She'd paid a professional forger to create it. She'd paid the 2 witnesses $5,000 each. She'd attempted to access my personal bank accounts using a forged power of attorney. She'd even looked into ways to trigger Vincent's heart condition to make his death look natural. Whether she'd actually done something to cause his heart attack, investigators couldn't prove, but the intent was there in her search history. The federal charges were filed. Wire fraud, using electronic communications to commit fraud, forgery of legal documents, conspiracy to commit fraud, perjury, lying under oath about the will's authenticity, embezzlement, identity theft, using Vincent's identity to create fraudulent documents. She was facing 20 to 30 years in federal prison. Her trial was 6 months after her arrest. I attended every day, watched as the prosecution presented the overwhelming evidence against her. The forged will with expert testimony about how it was traced. The witnesses who admitted being paid to sign. The embezzlement records showing $35,000 stolen. The video of Vincent's real will leaving everything to me and specifically excluding her. Amber's defense attorney tried to argue that Vincent had verbally promised her things. He said he loved me. He said he'd take care of me. I believed him. The prosecutor demolished that argument. "So because of an alleged verbal promise, you forged a will? Embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars? Committed perjury? These weren't misunderstandings, Ms. Reeves. These were calculated crimes." The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the federal judge looked at Amber with disgust. "Ms. Reeves, you engaged in a calculated years-long fraud scheme. You targeted a man you were having an affair with. You forged legal documents. You committed perjury in court. You embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars. You attempted to steal a $4.35 million estate through fraud. Your actions were predatory, cruel, and calculating. You showed no remorse, only entitlement. I sentence you to 22 years in federal prison. You will also pay restitution of $75,000 to the Morrison estate. The embezzled funds plus the money you spent trying to execute this fraud, plus $150,000 in legal fees, Mrs. Morrison incurred fighting your fraudulent claims. Amber started crying. This isn't fair. I loved him. He promised me. He promised you nothing, the judge said coldly. You made that up just like you made up everything else. Take her away. They led Amber out in handcuffs. 22 years. She'd be 56 years old before she was even eligible for parole. Her entire adult life, wasted. For greed. For money she was never going to get. Meanwhile, asset recovery began. Everything Amber had bought with stolen money was seized. The Mercedes sold. Money returned to the estate. The jewelry sold. Money returned. The designer clothes donated to charity, tax deduction to the estate. Her attorney David Walsh faced his own consequences. The Georgia State Bar investigated him for failing to verify the authenticity of the will before presenting it to court. He was suspended from practice for 1 year and required to take ethics courses before reinstatement. His reputation was destroyed. Most of his clients left him. As for me, my estate was fully restored. Vincent's foretold $35 million estate came to me exactly as he'd always intended. The house, our house for 42 years, was mine. The business I sold Morrison Construction for $3.1 million. I didn't want to run a construction company, but I made sure all of Vincent's loyal employees got fair severance packages and good references. All the investments, savings, life insurance, everything Vincent had worked for came to me. Plus the recovered embezzled funds. Total about $4.5 million. Everything Vincent wanted me to have. 1 year after Amber's sentencing, I was living peacefully. I was 67 now, living in my house, managing my finances carefully. I donated $500,000 to establish the Vincent Morrison Legal Defense Fund, helping widows and widowers fight estate fraud. I volunteered with legal aid organizations, using my background as an estate attorney to help elderly people protect their assets from predatory family members and companions. I did pro bono consulting on estate fraud cases. And I traveled. Something Vincent and I had always planned to do but never got around to. I went to Paris, to Rome, to Greece, places we talked about seeing together. I scattered some of Vincent's ashes in each place, bringing him with me on the adventures we should have had. I also wrote an article for the American Bar Association journal, Protecting Your Estate from Forgery, a case study. My case, Amber's attempted theft of Vincent's estate, became a teaching example in law schools across the country. How to properly authenticate a will. How to recognize forgery. How to protect elderly clients from predatory companions. Last month I spoke at the Atlanta Bar Association's annual conference. The topic, estate fraud prevention. I told them the whole story. Vincent's warning, our preparation, the forged will, the trap, the arrest, the conviction. During the question and answer session, a lawyer raised her hand. Mrs. Morrison, when Amber presented that forged will at your husband's funeral, why didn't you immediately reveal you had the real will? Why wait and let her think she was winning? I thought about that question carefully. Because if I'd revealed the real will immediately, Amber might have claimed it was a misunderstanding, might have said she'd been confused about which will was valid, might have gotten away with minimal consequences. By letting her proceed, watching her present the forged will in court, move into my house, spend company money, commit perjury under oath, I built an airtight criminal case. She didn't just lose the civil estate battle, she lost 22 years of her freedom. Sometimes the best justice isn't the fastest justice, it's the most thorough justice. Another lawyer asked, do you regret how you handled it? Do you wish you'd stopped her sooner? Not for a second. My husband warned me what Amber was planning. We prepared for it together, and when she tried exactly what Vincent predicted, I was ready. Knowledge is power, preparation is protection, and patience is how you ensure justice is complete. After the conference, an elderly black woman approached me. She looked worried, scared. Mrs. Morrison, my husband died 3 months ago. His business partner, a woman 30 years younger than him, is claiming he left her everything. She has a will I've never seen before. I don't know what to do. I pulled out a business card for Elizabeth Chen. Call her. Tell her I sent you. Tell her everything you know. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Protect yourself now. What if the will is real? What if he really did leave everything to her? Then you'll know. But if it's fake, like in my case, you need to act quickly. Get a lawyer who specializes in estate fraud. Have the will analyzed by forensic experts. Don't let anyone bully you into accepting something that doesn't feel right. The woman took the card with shaking hands. Thank you so much. You're welcome, and remember, you're not alone. There are lawyers who specialize in this. There are resources. You don't have to fight this battle by yourself. She left, looking slightly less terrified than when she'd arrived. I gathered my materials and drove home. To my house. The house Vincent built our life in. The house Amber tried to steal. I sat in the living room where Vincent and I had planned our counter-strategy against Amber. Thought about the 42 years we'd had together, the good years, the struggles, his weakness in the affair, his strength in warning me and protecting me even from beyond the grave. Vincent had made mistakes. The affair with Amber was wrong. It hurt me deeply, but in the end he'd chosen me. Chosen us, chosen the life we'd built together over the fantasy Amber was selling. And he'd made sure I was protected. The will in the safety deposit box, the video recording, the DNA embedded paper, the specific exclusion of Amber with the reasons stated clearly. He'd given me every tool I needed to defend myself. And I'd used those tools perfectly. Amber was in federal prison, serving 22 years. All the money she'd embezzled had been recovered. All the assets she'd tried to steal were mine. And I was living the life Vincent and I had planned, minus Vincent, which was the hardest part, but living it nonetheless, traveling, volunteering, helping others, using my knowledge and experience to protect people from predators like Amber. 67 years old, a widow, but not a victim. Because Vincent and I had been smarter than Amber. We'd anticipated her moves. We'd prepared our defense. We'd set the perfect trap. And when she walked into it thinking she was so clever, thinking she'd gotten away with the perfect crime, we destroyed her completely. Knowledge, preparation, patience. Those were the weapons that won this war. And I'd wielded them with the precision of someone who'd spent 38 years as an estate attorney. Amber had thought she could outsmart a 66-year-old widow. She'd forgotten that this 66-year-old widow was also a lawyer with nearly 4 decades of experience in exactly the kind of fraud Amber was attempting. That was Amber's fatal mistake. And now she was paying for it with decades of her life. As for me, I was free, financially secure, at peace. Living the life Vincent had worked so hard to provide. And every day I honored his memory by using what he'd given me. Not just the money but the preparation, the warning, the tools to help others protect themselves from people like Amber. That was Vincent's real legacy. Not the $4.5 million estate, but the lesson. Protect yourself, prepare for the worst. And when predators come for what's yours, be ready to destroy them completely. I learned that lesson well. And I'll spend the rest of my life teaching it to others. Because knowledge saved me. And knowledge can save anyone who's willing to use it.